Welcome to an incomplete guide to personal growth. We invite you to take a breath and take a listen to our podcast that explores the wonder, humor, challenges, and sometimes those self-inflicted wounds on the journey of personal growth.
Our weekly podcast conversations include stories, resources, and tools that you can incorporate into your daily life. We're the mother-daughter duo of Sydney West
and Kelly Arundel.
Hi, Mom.
Hey, Sid.
How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm excited today because we have Bernie Byars with us.
Yes.
Interviewing and talking about anxiety.
Yes.
Speaking of anxiety, maybe it's just nervousness. Now, this is what we'll talk about. Because when I came back into town the other week, and Dad had a friend from Memphis in town.
Oh, yeah.
And they'd gone out to eat the night before, but he was like, well, why don't we have him over for dinner? And I'm like, I don't cook much. I cook to provide a meal, and that's about
it. Yeah.
And so, we switched to that Every Plate or I don't even know what it is. We get HelloFresh, one of those things that you suggested years ago. And so we're doing that, and I feel like, so he's sitting at the bar,
just watching you.
Pull out a box.
Yes. And stuff's like pre-packaged.
And then I'm reading these pictures so I know what to do. And I thought, this is really weird feeling.
I know.
Am I cooking? Am I not?
It is cooking.
It is cooking. I think it's your generation's way of cooking. But
yes.
I save money because I don't waste ingredients.
And that's what I think.
Less.
Then you don't waste food.
Yeah.
Just, and I don't like
way
to
less
eat
time.
leftovers. Yes.
And way less time.
Way less
and
time.
it actually tastes good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
and
not playing
and at the end he said, I may have to look into this because his wife, he's, your dad and my age, maybe a little older. He said his wife is done cooking, so he has to cook. And he said, I don't believe in cooking anything that takes longer to cook than it does to eat.
Oh, I like that.
So
that's a good philosophy.
This is and these meals are pretty good for that. So who knows? Maybe we're passing on. He's learning from a.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yes. So, highly recommend if you need time.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
All right.
Yeah. Let me just, because we are talking about mental health, I just want to do a disclaimer. Now, Bernie has licenses other than driver's license, but Sydney and I just have our driver's license. So if you need to talk, this is just a discussion. It's not a
therapy session.
If you need, and there is a national hotline, 988. It's a national suicide prevention hotline, and they can help you. They'll have trained professionals to talk to you, and they can also refer you to people, to places in your area that can give that help. So I just want to put that out there before we do anything else.
Yeah.
And let me briefly introduce Bernie. And she is an LPC.
Yes.
In private practice.
Yep.
She's had a variety of experience from she's worked at the Eating Recovering Center here in San Antonio.
She's worked for an OB/GYN, which
yes,
is cool.
which I had never known about that.
Yeah.
But then you think about the issues pertaining to birth and
everything
fertility,
after.
all of that, and after, and I just think that was eye-opening.
A lot of grief too, a lot of trauma.
Yeah,
lots of it.
Yeah, so I think that's just eye-opening that is available.
Yes.
You don't have to bear that by yourself.
Yeah.
There's help for that.
Yeah. Sometimes I think your OB is like your kind of like your hairdresser, your hairstylist. They learn everything about you.
Yes.
So they hear a lot. Mm-hmm. They're great resources.
For sure.
So.
That's great.
Yes.
And then now she's in private practice. All ages, all types of people.
In the San Antonio area, from 9 to 74. That's a spread.
That's a good.
That is really
good
neat.
spread.
Yeah.
Keeps me on my toes.
Yes. So definitely not the same thing over.
Yeah. So we're gonna try and keep these next couple episodes focused. So this one we're kind of gonna focus a little more on anxiety, and then we'll turn to depression also next time. Yes. But I guess, can I open or do you want to open?
Go ahead.
Okay. I like the question. What is the difference between being nervous and having anxiety?
Good question.
Yeah.
Love the question. I think nervousness is a part of anxiety. I think anxiety too is just like a normal emotion, like any other one, and nervousness is a normal emotion. I think nervousness, when I think about it though, it's like like my niece, for example, she had to take the STAR test last week, or I forget when it was, right? And I was like, so are you nervous about it? And she's like, yeah, a little bit. I'm kind of nervous. And then she runs off and starts playing, right? Like, so she's worried about it. She's concerned. She's thinking about it. She knows it's important because, you know, in 3rd grade, that's a big deal.
It is, yeah.
But then anxiety is more something like maybe a kid who they have the STAR test and they have been studying forever, or they can't even think about it because it's too overwhelming to think about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's more the severity of the worry, of the uncertainty of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that's like how I kind of differentiate nervousness.
Between
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are there types of anxiety, or is it just a
Broad term. Yeah.
broad term?
Like,
You know what I mean?
I think, well, do you mean diagnosis or do you mean
Yeah.
more
I guess diagnosis and
Yeah.
and then panic attack come in. I don't
all
know.
those kind of
Yeah.
things? Actually, we had to write these down
Okay. Okay. Well,
because
good.
there's
Yeah.
several.
Really?
Yes, there's, I don't know how many. So you have different, so you have the different ones are separation anxiety disorder. So that's the little kids more than anything.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
You have selective mutism, so somebody who is selective on who, when they talk and how they talk and who they talk to. I've never interacted with anybody that has that, but one of my colleagues has, and it's very fascinating to me. Specific phobias, so when you're afraid of one specific thing, like, I don't know, maybe stairs, or maybe, I'm terrified of lizards, but it's not,
Yeah, it's not like
it's not a problem because I don't live on a lizard farm, you know. But it could be if I did.
Right.
You have social anxiety, which I feel like a lot of people know about. You have panic disorder.
Okay.
So there's actually a disorder for just having panic attacks, and they can come out of nowhere, and then you get terrified that you might have another panic attack.
Okay. Wow.
Agoraphobia, and then you also have generalized anxiety, which is the most common
Most
one
common,
that
right. Yeah.
most people know about,
Yeah.
which is what I get the most of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
so.
I just hear so much about it that you never used to, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And what that may be, but what about the body's
Yeah.
response to that?
To anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah, the physical side effects are crazy, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, when you've got the typical, like, also that comes with fear, right? And so it's going to be like your heart's pounding, you're sweating, maybe your blood pressure gets really high.
Yeah.
Those would be like the most common ones, and they're normal, and they have to do with fear, right? You see a lion, that's probably all the things that are going to happen.
Yeah.
But when it comes to anxiety and anxiety disorders, they get more severe, and I wrote some of these down just so I wouldn't forget. But the upset stomach, so a lot of kids will come to the nurse's office and be like, my stomach hurts. That comes chronic. Might be an anxiety disorder. A lot of indigestion. Like I've had some clients that have like heartburn, and it's almost like a form of a panic attacks going on inside of them. And so they just have like this chronic heartburn.
Wow.
Diarrhea, constipation. Some people don't realize it can go the other way. Increased blood pressure, which I already said. Breathing issues. Headaches. Chest pain, that's another common one. Tingling in your appendages.
Wow.
Loss of sexual desire, that's another big one. Muscle aches and pains, like, that are really unexplainable, like you're just hurting in places. And then like rashes, some people can get rashes. When I have had I've had a history of anxiety and depression, but when I'm having massive anxiety, my hands look like red rashes.
Oh my God.
It looks like I have like gloves on of red rashes.
Wow.
Because my body was under such severe
Yes.
distress.
This
It's crazy.
Yeah, no, I'm listening to this, and I'm, Lauren has dealt with that too. Various things, and I'm listening to these side effects of the body that I would have never put together.
No.
And if you can't verbalize it, or you don't know yourself what's going on, you just know my stomach is hurting, or I have whatever it may be, reflux, indigestion, just
And that could be anxiety.
It could be.
it
It
could,
could
I
just
mean,
be
it could be
anxiety.
part of it,
Yeah.
And
That's
And
fascinating.
so how hard that would be to diagnose with children.
Especially with little
Especially
kids,
with
because they
little
don't have
kids.
language for it at all.
Right.
Right. You
Right.
just know that you see the effects.
Yeah, it can give hives to some people too.
Yeah.
Forget about that one. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
See, and like, I would have that, and then I just go like to the doctor, but then.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably wouldn't think either, oh, let me, like, refer this person to a, therapist, psychologist to figure it out.
I think what's really, a lot of times, I feel like doctors are getting a little bit better about identifying it just because anxiety
It's so
Yeah,
with
that's
Gen Z
nice.
has
Yeah.
completely, and cell phones and everything has just like
Yes.
made this diagnosis so much bigger. But a
Yeah.
lot of times, like doctors, they just prescribe a medicine and they don't necessarily, maybe they're like, you should get counseling, but they
Yeah.
don't push it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a couple of pediatricians, like pediatric offices I work with in town, and one of them is so great. They'll have the parents almost like call while they're in the office,
Wow.
like having some specific referrals for things.
That's good.
So they'll catch it in that way,
Yeah.
which is great.
That is nice because you don't
Yeah.
had no clue.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so I feel like anxiety, too, is, I don't know, kind of like thrown, that word I feel like is just thrown around. So, like, what would you say is like the actual, like, how would you define anxiety in like a clinical
Clinical
yeah.
word or
Yeah.
wording or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's anxiety, and then you can have anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
You know, and so we all have anxiety. If you
Right.
don't, like, that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, because your body isn't
And
responding.
you don't care about anything.
Exactly. Like, we really, really need it. I need it,
It's
you know?
it's a signal to us.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
we're in danger. Or
Yeah, that something
right?
could go bad. Something could
Yeah.
go wrong, you
Yeah.
know? It's just a matter of, like, is this perceived? It's more about a perceived threat. Like, a possible threat would be anxiety.
Okay.
It would be like fear is when you're in it and it's
yeah.
happening right now.
Okay.
And anxiety would be more of like it's a normal reaction to things that are upcoming.
Okay.
So it's super normal. People
Yeah.
use it all the time. Like, I'm anxious about it. And they
Yes.
really are.
Yeah.
But it's just overused.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think so.
It becomes a problem when there's like no real danger ahead and when it becomes persistent.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like interferes with living.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's just worry, you know?
Yeah.
I always have my kids like just pick a word. It doesn't matter what it is, you know? I'm anxious, I'm nervous, I'm worried.
Yeah.
I feel dreadful. I have one kid that uses that. I feel dread coming.
I feel tricked.
It's like, okay.
I love it.
Nice.
So what's a sign that either for
Yeah.
a parent or myself, your own being, this is more serious. I'm not handling it on my,
Yeah.
go get to
Yeah.
seek the help.
seek the
What's
help.
kind of
Yeah.
Well, really, it's got to be something. When I think about anxiety disorders, it's like long-standing anxiety.
Okay.
You know, it's not just like, I got really anxious before I took my like big final test for school.
Yeah.
Totally normal.
Yeah.
Should be anxious.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Not a big
should
deal.
be, yeah.
Spend a lot of money on this. Like,
Yep.
better do it.
Yeah.
But I would say more like if you notice like high irritability in someone, maybe high avoidance of things, like not wanting to go do things, avoiding things that make them nervous or worried. It's for me, it's when the avoidance or it all of a sudden is like now impacting their life in some way.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, I also think it's really helpful I've had some people come in for like 4 sessions. They don't have an anxiety disorder. They just want to learn how to deal with their worry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
know?
really good. Yeah, and I think so. Yeah, I 100% had postpartum anxiety, but it's like you just don't think about it at the beginning, and you were there. I was just so obsessed with Charles's sleep.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, well, it has to be like this, and like, oh my, and like if a nap was ruined or if something. Oh, I just get so mad, but I would just get so inside, so irritated and mad and frustrated that then it just like ruined the rest of the day. And then looking back, I was like, it just felt like waves of just overwhelm and just emotions all the time. And then I think about it, I probably maybe had like some mild anxiety even before, but it wasn't to the point where I couldn't cope with it or have my ways. But then, man, postpartum hit, it was like, and it just felt like waves and like something I could not get above, you know, or avoid, or just like, it was inevitable, you know?
It was not my feeding schedule too.
Feeding?
Just gonna say.
I know. It's like, how much do you have? Okay, he needs this, he needs this.
Yeah, and so, yeah.
And then he cried, I'm like, but he's not supposed to be hungry.
You're like, 5 o'clock. No.
And that was like, you know, irrational.
Yes.
And looking back, I was like, yeah.
And that's a great example of like
Yeah.
what would be a sign. Like when something like your reaction to something not going how it quote unquote should is so much higher than quote unquote average. Like the jump is higher.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Or more easily on edge, or more easily like running around, or like things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you sought some help.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think it's what you said is interesting, that sometimes I think people think of therapy that you go in and you never come out. But to know that it can be short term.
It can be short term.
It can be. There are
Yes.
times when it does go on. But
Yes.
there are times when I just need these skills. I need these tools. I need some, you know.
I just need some ways to
reflection
work
and-
through things.
Yeah. See, like
Yeah.
now, I mean, I don't go for postpartum anxiety anymore. Like I've kind of worked through that and gotten my coping and all that stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that,
So yeah, and speaking of techniques and stuff,
what? Because I've heard some techniques. Lauren has taught me. My younger daughter has taught me some techniques about anxiety when you're feeling it, and I didn't realize we should, because the body, you were talking about that. And so she had a paper, and maybe you may have a copy of this that we can put on our website, or I'll get it from her, about techniques. And one of them was ice. Putting your face in ice or cold water, or and the other one, which was seen on TikTok, but I knew it before TikTok, I'm just going to say, are those, I can't
Sour
stand
Patch?
them. Oh,
Sour Patch
yes.
Kids? Oh, the best.
Because they reset.
They
It's a
help
reset
reset.
of your nervous system.
Yeah.
I had never.
Crazy.
Yeah. That one's a
Yeah.
good one. I've never thought about that one. I normally peppermint or something,
Oh,
but
yeah.
Sour
Yeah.
Patch is great.
Yeah.
Sour Patch Kids.
I also
Carries
love
them
them.
now. Yeah. I can't stand them, so that
Yes.
really reset me.
Oh man.
So what are some? Those are just two that I know of.
I mean, I think it's anything, because one of the bigger like body things that happens, and this happens for, I mean, most people, is your heart rate just gets skyrocketed when you're anxious. And so the goal of any sort of like the first technique has to be something that's going to calm down your heart rate.
Yeah.
Because when you calm down your heart rate, you can go from your upstairs brain to your downstairs brain.
Yes. Which is
And
more
be
developed.
Yes. and you can bring in some logic, and you can use some skills that you really need to use.
Yeah.
But before any of that, it's like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell. What's that other one? 1 thing you can taste.
Oh, okay. So you're
Okay.
And that's normally when I'll use a peppermint.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
like
you start with the 5.
Yeah.
And then you,
Keep going. It's
'cause
just
you're-
going through your senses.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's making your brain focus on something else.
Yeah, so it's just
Okay.
giving it time to be able to focus on something else.
Okay.
And one of my favorite ones is basically like, I can't think what it's called now. I actually don't know the name of it. It's like where you are in space, basically.
Okay.
Okay.
And so, like in my office, I would have the client say, or myself say, I'm in Bernie's office. I'm in Alamo Heights.
Okay.
I'm in San Antonio. I'm in Bexar County.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm in Texas.
you're getting big. I see.
I'm in the United States. I'm in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in the globe. And then you go back down. I'm in the globe, or I'm in the world.
Yeah.
I'm in the Northern Hemisphere. And you go all the way back down to I'm in Bernie's office. But you do it really, really slowly,
Okay.
because that will help slow down your breathing.
Interesting.
My favorite one is to count down from 100 by 2s slowly.
It'd take a lot of brain
know
power
if
for
you
me.
can.
I don't know. No.
Exactly.
It does, though,
because you
have to-
really have to think about it.
What did I just say? What did I? It was,
Yeah, because and it's normal. Your brain's going to wander, but if you bring it back and you slow down that breathing, it's going to slow down your heart rate, which is going to help you use your like more of like a wise mind
Okay.
kind of thing. Those are just some like random ones.
Yeah,
But
no, those
Yeah.
are good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anything where I say no less than like 20 breaths.
Oh, yeah.
Which clients hate that.
Oh, yeah, because it's a long time. But it takes a while.
It takes
Yeah.
time.
Time to do that. I
To come
love
back
that.
in.
Yeah, but dunking your head, if you're like way off,
Way off the chart. Yeah.
dunking your head in ice water is like a
Yeah.
great one.
Okay.
Doing 10 burpees, awful, but
Yeah, but you can do it.
yep, another
Yes.
good
Love it.
one.
Oh my
Progressive
gosh.
muscle relaxation, like tensing up your muscles and
then
loosing them.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, like, having some of these probably in our back pocket would be good. And then, like, if you're not the one experiencing it, but you see somebody else, like, having some anxiety.
Yeah.
Like, what are, I don't know.
Suggest those.
Yeah, like things that we should or shouldn't say, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, when you see it.
You know, yeah, and that's important because I know I used to think I was being helpful, you know.
Stop.
Yeah, I know. I just always offer myself. But when Lauren would start, and I'd go, okay, I'm just going to calm. And she didn't need me calm,
Yeah.
you know. But I thought if I'm calm, maybe it'll rub off. Osmosis. But
Well, you do have to be
but
calm.
you do.
Yes, yeah.
You do.
I don't know that she mirrored that.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, but you can't always.
I didn't know,
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah, what
she needed somebody to talk to her, and I didn't know how to talk to
didn't
her.
know how to say
I
anything.
didn't know the tools.
Yeah.
I use a therapy style for parents called EFFT, all the acronyms, Emotion Family Focus Therapy.
Okay.
And so it's like my favorite. I've done several trainings through them. They're wonderful people, but and this is for almost any sort of diagnosis where you need to help your kids with things or emotional like disturbances or anything, but it would be basically it's validation of whatever the experience, the emotion that they're having. It would be like maybe so let's say a kid's nervous about a test because that's what I was using. Like I know you're really nervous about this test and you it's really important because it's going to help you go to the next grade. If you don't, you'll have to do it again, and that's stinky.
Yeah.
And because you really, really like to do good on tests and you've never, ever failed one before.
Yeah.
So what that does, that validation is it really just soothes them and calms them down.
Yeah.
And then you do an emotional support.
Okay.
So maybe the emotional support is like, hey, let's go outside and play tetherball for a little bit. Right? And so it's like, let's go do something that's fun and enjoyable.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's, why don't you come sit with me right here and we'll read this book.
Okay.
Right? And so you meet their emotional need, whatever
Yeah.
that is in that moment.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it just, and the emotion with anxiety, the emotion can be anything. It can be
Oh.
loneliness. It can be all sorts of
Yeah.
things, embarrassment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it can be
Yeah.
anything,
And I
but you
think
match that.
One thing I heard a word that it could be because at the beginning you said you're doing this and da-da. You didn't say but.
Yeah.
You're really good. And I remember reading that somewhere. It was like, okay, because you
'Cause
validate and then but invalidate.
Invalidates. Yeah.
Invalidates, right? And
The beauty of the and.
Yes.
So, but I noticed that. So
Yes.
it's like and.
And you're not trying to
So
fix
your
anything.
continuation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just, because
That was
it's,
my problem.
always trying to fix. Because a lot of times they can fix it themselves.
Yeah.
You don't even have, the last step is the practical step. It would then be like, after you played a little bit, maybe it would be then like, hey, do you want to go over your math problems one more time?
Yeah.
But they may do that all on their own.
Yeah.
You know, we try to jump to the fixing first when really it's just helping. Your job as a person with them is to co-regulate them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is,
Yeah.
I think that was my biggest
It's so hard.
flaw. I don't know, flaw, whatever. It was my biggest mistake over and over was trying to fix because I didn't empower them,
Yeah.
you know, and that prolonged.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
not that's just life.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah,
you
it
know,
is what
but
it
you
is,
learn.
and
You
you
learn that
learn.
and go,
And you
wow.
use a
I
kid.
know it now.
But I think that's something like if you're with a friend and they just like need help walking through it, you can do the same
Yeah.
thing.
Exact same thing. Yeah. You can do it with anybody.
Yeah.
So let's talk about toward the end here, and we're going to talk about how to find a therapist,
Yes.
Yes.
Good
and if
question.
it's not a good fit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, both of those things. Yes. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're the
Finding a therapist is really hard. I'm gonna be real honest.
It is.
it
Yeah.
is, yeah.
finding a therapist that's taking clients
Yes.
is really,
Even
really
harder.
hard. I mean, there is something called Psychology Today. And so you can get on there and you can, you
Search
can
your
pick
area.
your area of specialty if you want like a specific gender, or if you want somebody who's non-binary, or if you want somebody who's familiar with whatever it is that you're dealing with, or and you can kind of just like filter through. If you need to use insurance, you can put that on there. If you need it to be virtual, so you can, that's a really great like just starting resource.
Yeah.
And a lot of times like that's where people can find really good options. Another one, I wrote another one down because I was thinking, word of mouth for sure. That's a really, really good one for sure.
Yeah.
And then you can, I mean, sometimes there's Facebook groups for it, like how to find a therapist kind of thing.
Yes. I know. And I think word of mouth is easier today.
It is today.
know?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And if it's not, we had an experience where it was not a fit. And just as a parent, I'm going to say, I listen to your kids.
Yeah.
If they're hesitant, it's not just because they don't want to go to therapy.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Right.
Always,
Could be.
Yeah.
Because we'll sit there. But we had one that actually scared the bejeebus out of Lauren with her. She was talking about, Lauren wasn't talking about suicide, but the therapist was, and told her she'd go to hell.
Wow.
Thinking about it. And Lauren didn't express that to me.
Yeah.
And she had this fear. It was awful. Set her back with, and then we had to, finding another one, if it's not your fit.
It's okay.
It's okay.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, those are things to think about when you're going in,
it's like with any other doctor. Like, if you don't like them, then
and finally,
Find somebody else. You're not obligated to stay.
Yeah.
I think one of the other thing is like make sure they're like a licensed mental health professional.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are coaches or maybe and it depends. Like there's biblical counselors who I think for certain things are great, but if there's a mental health issue, maybe not the way to go.
Because that's and it was and I did notice in Psychology Today, I was looking through there the other day, and they'd say verify.
I saw that recently too.
I didn't know that. I don't know if I've noticed that before, but I didn't know what that meant.
I
but
don't
guess
either.
Maybe the credentials have been verified somewhere along.
That's what
maybe.
I wondered too. I'm not on Psychology Today, but because I'm not taking new clients, but I don't really know what it all is. But that's what I'm guessing is somebody came in. Maybe they have to have multiple people like other professionals verify that they're accredited and things. I also think it's important like after like giving your therapist like probably 4 sessions before you make that decision. And I do that too. I say to them, we're going to do 4 sessions and then we're going to reevaluate. Because it's really hard for your client to bring to you and say, hey, I don't really know if this is a good fit. Like, that's really hard for somebody to do.
It is.
So I think it's partially the therapist's job to do it, too.
And the therapist to go, I think I have somebody that would be more aligned with what you're experiencing would be more aligned with you. You know, that
which I do.
Something.
I've done.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, this is not my area. I wish it was because I like you, but this is just not what
move on. Yeah.
You need somebody who does this.
Kind of that's good. And that's when you know you got somebody that really cares.
Yeah,
for sure. Definitely.
All right.
Well, I think that covers a good bit of anxiety.
Yes, and we'll be following up with
Depression next week. So make sure to share this with people that you think would be helpful for, and Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all the places. And so just make sure to like and rate. And if you found this helpful, just let us know. We'd love to hear your comments. And so, we'll see you next week. And we invite you to take a breath and take a listen. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of An Incomplete Guide to Personal Growth. There are many ways you can stay connected. Follow us on Instagram at An Incomplete Guide Podcast, where you can sign up for our email list and get posts that delve deeper into our weekly topics. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast page wherever you listen to your podcasts. We would really appreciate a rating and sharing us with your family and friends.
We're so glad you chose to spend your time with us, and hope there was a thought, a resource, or a laugh that you can take on your journey. We'll be here every Tuesday for you to take a breath and take a listen.